Hey, it's being recorded. Fantastic. Thanks, Danny, for coming. I'm not even going to go into a really long introduction because I think most people know who you are, love your work, and kind of you're really highly respected. As I said to you just a minute ago, one of the reasons we invited you in is because a lot of the leaders had selected you to be their mentor. And it was about 10, and it just felt a little bit, it was like really difficult to discern who do we ask you to mentor and who's not. So the best idea was to bring you in.
That's so nice.
Yeah, so right, you know, so thank you very much. I'm going to jump right in, and I think that Dee had a really good question that I think a lot of people were asking, that kind of idea. Dee was asking about the idea of him, he was a prolific filmmaker, and the move to commissioning. Dee, I saw, did I just see you somewhere?
I can see Dee. Hello, Dee. Nice to see you.
Yeah, do you want to introduce yourself and ask that question? I know you know Danny, but do you want to jump in with
I know Dee.
Yeah.
Hi, Danny. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Builder in the background. Just wanted to say, yeah, I mean, I knew before you were in commissioning, when you were an amazing filmmaker. What made you decide to change into commissioning?
That's very nice to say I was an amazing filmmaker, but I actually really don't think I was. Genuinely, I think I was in that band of filmmaking that I was fine and good. I definitely wasn't terrible, and made some quite good stuff, but I wasn't in that band of like all those super hot directors that always appeared back in my day, appeared to be getting the calls, be on the Channel 4 Nick Mirsky list. I was not in that list ever. I never could make a single film for Channel 4 or the BBC. I made one for Channel 5. I was making films, and then I started to series produce. So series produced something called The Audience for Channel 4, which I loved, absolutely loved making. It's referenced quite a lot in development meetings. Those of you in development, probably it gets referenced sometimes, but my God, it totally bombed. Like no one watched it, but it was a brilliant experience. It was really great. And then I started to exec. I was at the Garden at the time and was doing some freelancing stuff. And then I joined as a staff member, but I didn't really love execing at all. I felt like execing, I was like stuck right in the middle of basically all the shit storms. So you've got all the channels giving the execs the kind of crap around why is it not coming on budget, on time, it's not what we commission. And then you're getting all the filmmakers saying, I need more time, I need more money. And I was like, this job's kind of like thankless. But then I went and worked with Sanjay at Voltage, which I did really love. And I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't really looking to commission actually. But Patrick Holland, who I'd never worked with, I didn't really know actually. I just sort of knew him in passing or whatever, or seeing him at events. He called me and said, he was head of documentaries at the time at the BBC, and he said, are you interested in commissioning? And I was like, no, I'm not really, thanks, but no thanks. And then a few weeks later, he called me again saying, well, look, can we just meet for a cup of tea? So we did, and then actually, as conversations went on, I spoke to people that I knew who were commissioners at the BBC or Channel 4. I thought it was like, oh, maybe this could be quite interesting. And then I went through the process of a board, the BBC, and then got a job there in commissioning with Patrick's team. And then I really loved it. I totally loved it. My favorite jobs in television have been series producing and commissioning. I absolutely love both those roles. I actually think they suit my sensibility a bit more, the way I work, because I don't think I'm as visual as a lot of directors are, and all the best ones have a natural style for that. I don't think I'm very good at that. I think I'm incredibly sort of impatient and love lots of things running all in the same time. I'm not very forensic actually, so I like lots of things running at the same time. I could just bounce from one thing to the next. So in commissioning, what's so amazing is you can, in one day, you can be going from like a panel like this to a pitching meeting within indie, to pitching our idea from indie ideas to Ian in a routine, to a complex legal meeting, to a press and marketing meeting, to a business affairs meeting. It's like really, it's that. So the range, I have to say that range also doesn't suit loads of people either, because I do think commissioning takes a particular type of personality that if you like to be in control of a lot of things, which actually many directors do, I actually think it's a terrible job for somebody, because almost everything is out of your control, and you're just constantly trying to put faith in the people that are making programs for you, or your lawyers at the channel, or and so you're putting a lot of trust in, and my team, of course, my commissioning team. So it's slightly a terrifying job. It's so fun though. I mean, it's such a privileged job. And I know you had Ben on, and Ben probably said the same thing, like you're getting, and I do feel this in factual particularly, you're the factual program makers that still come, despite the sort of, the streamers and Amazon and Netflix and everything, despite those guys, I feel like we're still getting the best factual ideas in the door. We're still getting the best program makers, and we can still attract, I think, the best filmmakers, people like you guys and indies. And I hope that won't change. Well, hopefully not in the time that I'm here, but I mean, I can see it, by the way, it is changing. I mean, Netflix have got a lot of money, and and rightly so, lots of directors and obviously good programs. So, I can see why that's very attractive. A good program, a good story they can film, and they get absolute ton of money to make it. What's not to like about that?
I think that, one of the questions that also came through was also, when you talked about Netflix and the influence of Netflix and kind of how that's changing, and obviously the TVs are still getting the best talent, best ideas, do you think that we can actually create a level playing field when it comes to creators from diverse backgrounds? And will it just take, what will it take? Not just Channel 4, but the industry wide. So do you think that we're kind of, obviously all the noise of last year, Black Lives Matter, all the stuff and all the promises, do you think we're any closer? And where you're sitting, are you seeing a shift and a change in the water?
Yeah, I think such a good question, that, right? I think, and it's quite a complex answer, because I think that we, I think I don't know I honestly don't know what sort of Netflix what their strategy is around diversity. From what I see around like initiatives that they're doing, it's really good. Like, they just announced one this week that I think is really impressive. But there is a difference, and you all know this too, and I've been in lots of conversations about this too. There is one thing to do in initiative. There's one thing in initiatives which I think, if they're right, the right kind of initiative, I do think they are actually genuinely really good. But there's a whole load that are just crap, and they're not fully supported, and they're just box ticking. And then there's another thing, which is giving people chances to make those films, and they don't have to be about a particular subject. It is about diversity. It can be anything, right? But it's giving people, it's my commissioning team knowing more names, having more people allowed to be in the conversations, because I think in the past it's not even been bloody allowed to be in the conversations, and so then they should be part of the conversation to be considered to make films. I think that's the thing that's not happening enough. And what is interesting, one of the things that we've been talking about, which is a slightly existential problem we've got as a channel, but is connected to this, is what is the purpose of a PSB? And it's really relevant for us in the BBC, I think, like right now. What is the purpose of what we're doing, and what are the things that are going to define us and make us distinctive running forward? And how can we make ourselves different from the streamers? Because the streamers are on a track that will not stop. It's just going to get stronger and stronger and faster, because more and more money is just going in. I think one of the things, not the only thing, but one thing that we can do is more commitment to diverse filmmaking in the broadest sense, right? So whether that is in nations and regions representation on and off screen, and lots of other representation, that is the thing that is one of the things we need to do more of, to tell stories that will resonate with British audiences, and British audiences, I mean all types of British audiences, broad and more specific British audiences. That is the thing that we could do, that actually the streamers, I'm not saying that they don't do subjects that resonate with particular diverse audiences, they absolutely do, and they're really brilliant at it. But the thing that they don't do and won't do, and it won't be part of their strategy, is to be telling them local domestic stories that resonate and affect all of us, and different types of diverse audiences. That is the thing that we need to identify and do more of.
In terms of like, you're saying that there's a shift and you're seeing different. In terms of your actual team, how diverse is your team, particularly at the levels? I know there's a few people in your team, but how diverse is your commissioning team at the minute? Such
a good question, because it's much less diverse than it was 12 months ago. So 12 months ago, I had Fatima who was running Specialist Factual. So Specialist Factual doesn't exist as a department anymore. I've collapsed it. And now we're one big factual team. So my commissioning team, there are 9 commissioning editors I've got currently, and I've got more than 50% female. Obviously 3 of them are nations and regions, and I've got Haji, who is British Asian, of course, and Rita Daniels, who's Black. So I've got 2 commissioning editors, and we're just about to, there is a new role that is to be announced, which will add to that number of diversity in my team.
Oh, so there's a specific role for somebody of color in your team?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Very interesting. I mean, that leads very nicely. I'm going to open it up in a minute. That a lot of people are asking, how do you advise in terms of making the switch from production to commissioning? What advice? And obviously, if there's a job coming up that's potentially there, we'd like to hear, how do we put our best foot forward? So what advice do you give in terms of those who are in production who want to kind of make the switch over into commissioning?
Oh, man. God, the switch is weird because, and I think this is, for those of you that might know other commissioning editors, some take to it like a duck to water, and some find it really difficult because suddenly you're going from, most often productions are you seeing the same team every day. There's a sense of camaraderie and a sort of group mentality, which is actually probably the thing we all love about working in productions, isn't it? We love, and actually I'm beginning to really miss it. I've just was on a couple of things recently and thought I just really miss productions, actually, in a sense, because you're all aiming for exactly the same goal. You like to think anyway. Whereas once you get into commissioning, it is unbelievably lonely. So because even though you're in a team of commissioners, everyone's slightly competitive, and hopefully not in a really ugly way, sharp elbow way, but because often at the commissioning level, it's people who are ambitious. They've usually reached a particular point in their career. They're usually very highly motivated and driven. And so you're dealing with quite a lot of that around you, but it's lonely because you are often the only one that goes into a pitch meeting within Indie. You're the only one that goes into a room, into an edit, where there's like 4 or 5 people from that production who care, who've been working on it for months and months and care unbelievably deeply. And they're all looking at you after an hour of watching the program for your take on it. So it's my top tip is like, you need to love to do, it brings back to the point I was making earlier, you need to love to do loads of different types of things. You need to love to like have a million things going at one time, and enjoy that, genuinely enjoy it, be able to pivot really quickly to things. You need to have resilience, because sometimes, I mean, I'm forever in meetings with indies who I am talking to people who are much better program makers than I ever was and have won way more awards. And I'm the one saying to them, I just don't really like this idea. I don't think this idea is going to work. Well, who the hell am I to say that, right? So, but that is my role. And I think you can't have a big ego. It's not that idea is shit. It's not that idea is not right, but it's just not right for now, that particular point in time, for the channel and the channel's needs. And the only thing that we know in the channel, we have insight, is insight into the broader strategy, vision and strategy and what the other departments are doing. And that's the only thing we have over indies and filmmakers. They're the ones that come up with the best ideas. They're the ones that are pitching. And sometimes it's a kicker because an amazing idea might come in and you think, I actually really love this idea, but I just know I'm never going to get this commission. I don't have the money, or we don't have the money to channel, or it's just not the priority that Ian is after, and that's what makes it really difficult. So you have to, that's why resilience is to just be constantly turning things down, people not being very nice to you because you're turning their idea down, just saying no. Ian or others giving you a really hard time about the idea, interrogating it, and that can be a no for you, that you then have to tell the indie. And also you have to also trust your instinct massively. You know, we get, like I was saying, you know, we get so many amazing ideas that come in to us, our team, every single day, genuinely every single day, and we can't make them all. So you just can't string people on. You have to trust your instinct. Like, what is the idea that I love more than I like? How do I feel? How am I going to feel walking into the edit of this program about to commission? Like, am I going to get really excited walking the door? Am I going to think, it could be all right, it could be good, I don't know. You just have to make tough decisions quite quickly is the fairest way. Yeah.
Has anybody else got any? Has anybody got any questions? Have we got any questions? I know I've got loads of questions here, but I thought it'd be a good opportunity to throw it to the floor. Does anybody wanna? Yeah, I'll be shy. Oh, go sweet.
I'll ask a question. Hi, Danny. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Vanessa?
I'm good. I'm glad you mentioned Hard, because he actually put me forward for this program. So
did he?
I'm very grateful to Hard. So,
I love Harj.
So do I.
Oh my God! But you heard it. You will hear this here first, right? Harj, I reckon, is, and I've said this to him, I think he's going to be running. He's going to be doing my job for sure in a couple of years. There's just no question. He's got every bit of it that he needs. He's definitely running really well. He's brilliant. I love him.
That's so good to hear. Because one of the things I was going to ask was about commissioners getting commissions. But it seems like someone like Harj has got a lot of things on at the moment.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to know, like, what stories are you looking for at the channel at the moment? Like, what new things are you looking for? Because, you know, we always have, you know, I've worked on the shows as well. Police shows, hospital shows, dog shows. Like, what other things is Channel 4 looking for?
So in my area at the moment, we're looking for, there's a handful of things that we are really prioritizing for. It's really next year we're looking, because we commission so far in advance. Really, we pretty much commissioned for this year, for 2021. So, but the stuff we next year's, you know, is this, we still got a lot of opportunity. So we're looking for big 9 p.m. returning series, and that means, you know, we've got a couple of new things that we are trialing, but, you know, we've relied heavily on a lot of our big returning series like 999, What's Your Emergency, 24 Hours in A&E, Secret Life of the Zoo, the Doghouse is new, but we've relied on a lot of formats which have done absolutely brilliantly, and we're not necessarily killing those, but there's no question that some of those, I won't identify which, but they are drifting in terms of their numbers, the way they land. And so I need to find new returning series at 9, probably in new spaces as well. So there's just a couple of things that I don't know whether you guys know about, but there's a brilliant series that about, it's the working title is 16, and it's basically filming in this school in Dudley in the Midlands, and it's all the kids are like 15, 16, but it's their last year in school, and it's about in a state comprehensive, and it's about their next move, like what they're doing in that final year and what their decisions are and decisions that they're making. And it's brilliant. It's just really funny, but it's very sweet and poignant and moving, but it's also incredibly insightful, actually, those kids and what they really think and where they're going, where they're heading. It's a brilliantly diverse cast, and the kids are just really warm and funny. And they talk about everything from, like, you know, jobs, ambition, right through to sex and drugs. And so it's some of it's really eye-opening. So we've got that in the sort of education-y space. And then we've got something called The Defenders, which was actually Rita and I were developing. We've been developing it for ages, actually. But then Black to Front came about, and actually we've commissioned it as part of that, but actually it's not going to land this year. It's going to be for next year. And Black to Front is a 6-part series for 9 p.m. that we hope will be returner, which is all it's 95% black barristers who are in this firm in London, who are all taken. Well, it's just following their lives. It's sort of docusoap with all the cases that they take on. So we can't get it for Black to Front because the case is too complicated that they've got, and we can't, for compliance and legal reasons, we can't get it in time. So we've got that for next year. So we hope that will be a really good 9 p.m. returning series. But we're looking for more. We're looking for a couple of police ideas. We're looking for probably something in the more formatted soldiers, marine kind of SAS type area. We're looking for something in the mental health space, because I think mental health is going to be a massive, huge thing next year and beyond, of course. But I think the fallout of the pandemic is going to be, we're not really going to know that until next year in terms of mental health. And we're already starting to see it. So I think that's a good area. And also work around work and benefits is I think that's it's going to be a really big area for the country. So, and the sort of 9 p.m. and those subjects that I've just been talking about, just that connects to what I was saying earlier about what we can do that the streamers will never do. What we're trying to do is touch on the things that are affecting all of us, and where our country and where we're heading. So and it's all about sort of, you know, education, identity, work, money, all of those subjects we're really looking at on a sort of domestic level, which is the thing that they just won't do. So if we can land some of those, that will be brilliant. The other things I should just mention to you that we are looking for is 10 p.m. is now opened up as a really big space for us. And 10 p.m. we're trying to get a combination of series and singles, and the series that we're doing, they're all based around younger subjects. So broadly, identity, gender, race, class, drugs, you know, so everything that is really pertinent, and lots of younger people are asking questions about themselves and all those around them. So we're particularly interested in mini-series ideas, meaning 4 to 6 episodes, and single films ideas. And Anna Morales, who I've just brought back into the business, who worked at Channel 4 several years ago, she owns that particular area quite well. So we're sort of broadening it out a bit more. So a lot of tabloid type, headline type subjects that we want really good program makers to unpick, so they actually are really wholesome, layered films, but they've got a sort of tabloid headline. But also just broadening it into some of those subjects that BBC Three actually have done quite a good. I think they've made some really good headway in those spaces around identity and gender and sex, and so I think some of those sort of aping some of that stuff, I think, is probably quite a good thing for us at 10. And then single films. Single films is we're trying to get more and more and more. What's harder with single films is subjects. Single films at 9 p.m. are harder to land because we still need to get quite big audiences. We often end up doing them co-pro because they're usually expensive to do big single films. But if they could be, by the way, an American story, but they have to be resonating with a British audience. So a really, really obvious example is we've got a film about 9/11, about the kids who were unborn. It's called Generation 9/11. It's all the kids who were unborn when their fathers died in 9/11, and it's telling their story now. So they're all 19 and 20 years old, and they live all across the world now. So we're filming in loads of different countries, but it is amazing the impact it's had, both good and bad, on those kids and their families over that period of time. So that's really an obvious example of a big single film where it's a big co-pro. It's co-proable. So we're doing it with the US broadcaster.
No, thank you. That sounds really good. It's good.
Has anybody else got a question? Yep, Navdeep.
Oh, hi, Danny. My name's
Navdeep,
and I'm a former BBC foreign correspondent. And for the last few years, I've been making content for the likes of Red Bull and so on, and sort of coming back into TV. Obviously, my biggest challenge, and I think it is for a couple of people I've spoken to on the course, is actually getting to know the commissioners.
Yeah.
So, you know, as you said, you know, someone approached you because they knew you from the industry and so on. How do we go about doing that? And the second question was, you know, has Britain become more insular in its outlook? You know, the programmes, it feels, kind of reflect that, yet the appetite for awards has gone to, you know, Once Upon a Time in Iraq, which is really powerful. You know, we've got Andrew Neil's channel launching, we've had Brexit. It feels that Britain's kind of coming in on itself. And how much of that, and you mentioned, you know, the link between, you know, 9/11 and links between foreign-based stories and the UK, but, you know, isn't arguable that Jamaica would be a link with the UK, or that India would have links with the UK, you know, where we see, where does this perspective come from?
100%. I'll answer that, try and answer that second question first. I think you are right. I think as a nation, it's hard to say this. I don't really know, because if you were to believe the mainstream media, meaning I really mean like BBC News and a lot of the newspapers, it would make you think we've gone into a much more insular, Brexit driven, we don't care about anyone else in the world kind of sort of mood. But I'm not 100% sure about that, especially when you look at the sort of the viewing habits of younger generation, particularly. You know, we wouldn't have considered putting American contributors inside British formats, for example, as an example, 3-4 years ago, but that is now happening. We've got American US presenters on some of the formats, that not that I do, but you see it now, and that is because they're younger audiences we're seeing don't care as much about that, like they're not as affected by that, whereas I think older British audiences have been quite fickle about that. But I think so I think that there'll be more of that coming through, and I think younger audiences are more interested in what would be foreign stories, because I think what they're finding, and this is the Netflix effect, which is a very good effect for us, is that if it's a good story and they find a good story, they'll definitely go with it. So I think in answer to your question around stories in Jamaica, stories from India, absolutely. I mean, you know, there's huge audiences here. I mean, there's just huge British Jamaicans, British Indians, right, who are living here. That are just, there's already a neat audience. But actually, if we get the subject right and the stories right, that will also increase audiences beyond that too, which is the thing we're all trying to look for. And it's interesting about, I mean, you're very specifically about India. It's quite interesting because we're looking at, of course, it's the anniversary of partition next year, and we're looking at doing some bits for next year around that, but we're trying not to do the obvious sort of history around, you know, looking at what happened in that particular period, and trying to do more left field views on that, how we can get a different, even younger audiences using the anniversary as a platform or a jumping off piece to do different things, and also launch different talent, on-screen talent too, which we've got in train in development at the moment. I think it's really interesting, your reference of Once Upon a Time in Iraq winning that award, and it will definitely continue to win loads more. The thing, and this is where it comes about balance when you're a broadcaster, and a broad broadcaster like we are, and BBC Two or whatever, is that though Once Upon a Time in Iraq did almost nothing in terms of audiences, actually, it just didn't really rate. It didn't really get, you know, like my parents probably never watched it. They just probably didn't have any effect on them. They live in, you know, the Northwest, and I just think that, I think it matters to a few people, and I think we have to 100% be doing those kind of programs, because, and we've got a 3-part series, not in a dissimilar space, coming up that I also don't think is gonna, by the way, get loads of viewers. but it's definitely worth doing. And it's not just worth doing for a cynical reason because you might win an award. It's worth doing because you're also trying to cover more difficult subjects with a different lens on that might not get the broadest audience. But what you're doing is because of our PSB and our obligations around that, we want to be doing more of that and have to. I mean, frankly, we have to, but also we want to. And that's also, by the way, what attracts really good, interesting commissioning editors. They want this broad range of stuff too. So I think it's always a balance of if we do those more international stories, what is the thing we're holding on to that will get a British audience, and as big a British audience as possible that you're getting to it. And so what I'm trying to do at the moment, and trying to get off the ground is almost like, and I said this recently as well, is almost like a version of Storyville, basically what Mandy's been doing. I think Mandy's done an exceptional job the last few years on Storyville, and you're starting to see all of her commissions come through now, and I think there's some brilliant films in there. And I would like to do the same thing at Channel 4, and I'm just working out how we do that. But it will be a similar model, meaning we will put in a certain amount of money for, say, 12 films a year, probably not as many as Storyville, because they probably do like 20 films a year. 12 films a year where we put in a certain amount of money, which will be low, but there will be international stories where there'll be other investors. And so to get them on screen, that's a really good model for us. That's a model that I think we can try and ape from Storyville, if we get the subjects right and our partners right, which Mandy, and previous to Mandy, her predecessor, of course, did a brilliant job of building all those relationships over a very long period of time. Do you want me to try and answer your first question?
Yes, please.
First question. Oh my God, just remind me very quickly. Sorry.
The first question was, how do we get to meet the commissioners if we're, I'm a new indie starting out. And I know that Fuad was also talking about this, actually getting access when you're kind of unknown, and, I am pretty unknown in this, at least,
Sure.
for the last couple of years.
So one way is the truth, the absolute truth is that although we've got 9 commissioning editors, there are too many indies for us to meet, because there are actually too many indies trying to make progress Channel 4. We don't have the amount of manpower to meet everyone, and we don't have the amount of hours to commission all the indies either. Now, what you might be thinking now is, yeah, but you just give loads of hours to the same indies, right? So that's the problem. And I think that is part of the problem, by the way, too. I'm not denying that. And I think there's complex reasons why that happens sometimes. But to try and answer your question, I think you definitely need to identify one person in the commissioning team and just get on their radar. Even if you say, can I either just send you some ideas that you could just give me a steer on, like, am I in the right territory here? Or have you got 10 minutes, rather than even asking for half an hour, have you got 10 minutes that I can just chat to you for? You'll be surprised how much, if you go in with a list of questions and an agenda, you'll be surprised at how much you'll be able to get in 10 minutes. And if you just hit on something with that person, they will, and you will want to meet again. You'll want to try me again, get something off the ground, and then it goes from there. I mean, part of, just before you all came on, Simone was saying, how's the accelerator going with the accelerator companies? And the truth is, I was saying to Simone, it's a mixed bag. I think some of it is working really well, some of it not so much. And I think that's really obvious though, right? I don't think, not everything can be 100% successful when you're working with different creative energies, different people coming from all different directions. Sometimes you just can't land on something because of different priorities, different viewpoints. I mean, and that's what makes our industry amazing, but also really frustrating. But I think the one thing that Accelerator has really done is we are in regular conversations, which has formed relationships with those indies that were not on our radar before. A lot of them, some of them were, but most of them weren't. And so even if nothing comes in the 12-month period of the assigned accelerator program, even if it comes after that, that's probably still worth our time and their time, because in the end they will get a commission. You're building relationships, and that is unbelievably useful. So the accelerator is good. identifying a commissioning editor and just trying to get 10 minutes with them, or even get feedback on ideas. So you're just lodging ideas with them and they're getting a sense of the kind of company that you are. One of the things we really struggle with as commissioners is understanding the DNA of a company. People come to say, I've started a company. I've got, what kind of program do you want to make? We want to make everything. That's really hard for us. I just don't know where to start with that. Any company, I just don't know where to start with that. It's like, okay, well, how can I help with that? Like, is it going to be more journalistic in its endeavor? Are you going to be more on-screen talent focused? Are you going to just go after 10 p.m. with Channel 4 because that resonates with what you might have made in the past? Or do you want to do more feature type docs, like feature format type docs? So in your 8 p.m. space, and I think having a clearer focus for an exec and an indie is definitely the thing that's really helpful for us. We get too many emails where, and I can understand why companies are doing it, but it's very, very hard for them to navigate where we're going with the relationship when there's just so many companies.
Has anybody got any questions? Yep, Bushra.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself again. I've got two questions.
Bushra.
Hi, Danny. Hope you're well.
Yeah, you too. You too.
I've got two very different questions. So one's quite personal, in that what advice would you give to an experienced PD wanting to jump into factual from current affairs? And the other one is, in your opinion, who do you think at the moment are some of the best directors and picture editors in the factual space that we could learn the craft from?
Wow, that's a good question.
Sorry.
It's fine. I'll start with your first question. So how do you jump from being a program maker in current affairs to being documentaries? So this is quite a common question, actually, because I think people in current affairs often start to want to do documentaries because I think what my understanding is that a lot of current affairs people want to spend more time with subjects, want to go more in depth with a particular like person, individual, or group, or a subject matter. So, and the only way to do that really is to start to make documentaries, isn't it? Because current affairs, just by nature, that's not what the role of current affairs. I'm candid with you about what the stereotype as a documentary person is of current affairs people, in that they are quite cold. They often don't understand nuance and relationship and building that with contributors in the way that you do have to do with documentary. They want things to happen much more quickly than they possibly do, and the story to unfold much more quickly, or get to a conclusion much more quickly than you can do. Sometimes you don't even get to conclusions in documentary, and you certainly don't know what they are at the beginning, so you often don't have a very steely question running through that you might do in current affairs. And then sometimes we feel in documentaries, it's terrible. I'm just telling you what the stereotype is, right? I don't really believe this, but this is definitely the general feeling around what current affairs program makers do, is that also that they're quite cold in their information giving. So they're usually programs are overwritten, they're fact giving without much nuance, and they're also not very emotionally driven. So, which is the thing that the key difference, I think, often is that in documentaries, so what you're really trying to do is tell a story where emotion is at the heart of it, of what you're trying to do, really, because you're trying to pull people in a different way that current affairs is trying to do. I think the leap is really hard. I think you probably have to identify one or two people in a team where they may have had that kind of background or may have made those kind of programs that you can try and get a relationship building, commissioning. But I also think your indies, you need to, if you're a freelancer, you should identify indies that possibly do both to try and get you in that more documentary space. And there's loads of them. I think there's loads of indies that can ride both horses, but it is but that leap is not easy, and I think it's not easy because it's also quite a crowded market in the documentary making space as well. So the competition is high, and there's some brilliant program makers around, which brings me neatly onto who are the best program makers around. I think we've God, I always get slightly stuck on this question. I'm trying to think who's made some brilliant stuff for us recently. So, oh my god, I'm actually stuck with individual names. So we've had some great films recently that are. I'm trying to think of the BAFTA nominations we might even have. So Nick Holt.
Some of the films that I was going to say, also some of the films that stand out, because that was a question that came in as well. So if not directors,
yeah,
really stood out as well.
Yeah, I think there is. So there's some like Surviving COVID, the film that was with Nick Holt, director, was really good. Sophie Jones was made. She made was part of Losing It, the mental health series. Ashley Francis Roy is one of my favourite directors at the moment, who made the Yinka Bikini film, who's now making and the Real Line of Duty documentary series. He's doing that. I think he's really special. Oh God, who are the others? I feel terrible now, because like there's program makers that will be watching this thinking, why are you not fucking mentioning my name? Like, that's like, we made programs for you. Can I come back to it? I'm really sorry. I've drawn a total blank over names. I'm actually really bad with names, by the way, which is my excuse.
That's all right. Is that all right? Has anybody got any other questions? One of the questions that I really liked, and Ben spoke a lot about just some kind of how he manages his insecurities or the noise in his head. What do you do to kind of get through your day? Ben talks a lot about, he meditates, he's a Buddhist, blah, blah, blah. Do you have any strategies or any things that you use? Firstly, do you have noise that comes up in your head? And then secondly, how do you quell that noise?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I honestly find it really stressful and very, very hard. All the things I really love about the things I was just saying about the job are all the things I also find really difficult about it, is managing so much in one go. And it's the failures that I find like the most difficult to manage. So I feel like we fail on so much. So and I honestly think I've learned to live with that. Like, I've learned to live with, as a part of the PSB, I think you're in a, you learn to live with failure, because you're under scrutiny over everything. And the reason why I came up through the BBC, made most of my progress to the BBC and Channel 4 in the end, is because I believe in public service broadcasting and what it stands for. And that's the reason why I'm in my role now as well, and why I love it. But the problem is that it's, and increasingly, because there's so much more competition and commercial competition, we still have those same obligations, rightly so. And I think we fail in so many of them. So the really obvious examples are, in my department, we didn't have anywhere near like 50% of female filmmakers. We don't have anywhere near as many diverse, as in colour, filmmakers making programs. We don't have enough diverse and disabled, by the way, as well. It's like so shockingly underrepresented in terms of program making. And also our nations and regions, until recently, that is one of the successes, funnily enough. Representation was terrible as well, up until recently. So the failures are the things that I find really stressful. But and I've had loads of, and continue to have sleepless nights, but I have less sleepless nights now than I used to, for a few reasons. Somebody told me about a year ago, somebody said to me, so I was like a year and a half into the job at that point, somebody said to me, there's so much you'll never control in this job, and there's no such thing as equilibrium. You will never have equilibrium in this role, ever. So you have to learn to live with just constant disappointment and just embrace that work out how you can do better, and also embrace all the really good stuff as well and enjoy that and the successes, which is definitely the thing I just didn't do before. The failures and my focus on the failures, which there are continuing to be loads of, I just was giving that more attention to the successes as well. And the successes are also part of the brilliant thing about the role. And there is loads of successes too, but I deal with it by, I'm actually amazingly good at switching off and just boxing it and just saying, like, closing the door and saying, I'll just deal with that tomorrow. I'm just going to have to do that tomorrow. And I can walk away from it, not for a long time, but I can. I also run quite a lot, and I think that helps. And I've just moved to the country, so I just needed to get more fresh air and see trees and birds, like any time I have. And that honestly is like totally helping. Like, yeah.
Before I move to John, I know John's got a question. Also, the last question after that is on three traits that you think make you perfect for the job. Just have that in the back of your mind. But I'm going to ask John. John, you had a question that you wanted to ask?
Yeah. Hi, Danny.
Hey, John. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. Danny.
John's a brilliant filmmaker. I was going to say, John's a brilliant filmmaker. There you go.
Very kind of you. Really kind. Thank you. Danny, I was going to ask you, is there anything you've seen on other channels, let's say in the last year, that you've thought, damn, we should have had that. We should have commissioned that.
Oh God, that's. Oh well, I mean, I think Once Upon a Time in Iraq is unbelievably brilliant. I think it's one of the best things I've seen on telly. I really, really do. I think. Can I run out of my own genre? Because there's some genres that there's other things that I just love. Like, I absolutely loved I May Destroy You. I absolutely loved it. And I think Channel 4 should have done that and not the BBC. It felt just such like a Channel 4 show to me, that. So I'm gutted we didn't do that. I think Netflix have done some really, really good stuff. I think they've created a way of making programs that has made us think differently about. If you look at all of their true crime, we as in Channel 4 and the BBC, we've been obsessed by making unfolding actuality, real-time driven narrative in crime, and they just don't. They've made a whole thing about historical crime and made it feel like it's unfolding. And I think they've done some brilliant stuff in there. I would say, yeah. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, it's usually stuff on BBC Two, I would say, is where I would look at, that I think is my greatest competition that I look over with envy. I thought The Detectives this time was really good. I thought the second episode of The Detectives on BBC Two was amazing this time. It's really well made. I still don't think it's as good as Police Custody, but I would say that. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I also think actually one of the this is where we might learn a couple of things from, is I think what they've done with more celebrity-driven documentaries in the BBC is definitely something we just need to do a couple of things on, because it can bring a different audience to difficult subjects. So David Harewood, I think, was an amazing film, and the Rio Ferdinand are the most obvious examples. I actually thought Jesse Nelson's film was really brilliant, actually, as well. So yeah, I think we can learn some stuff from those kind of programs.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Before we go, I would like to know, what are the three traits, the three things that you think that make you uniquely bring to your job and make you amazing at what you do?
Oh my God, I'm not sure I am amazing at what I do. I just fucking struggle and try every day. But I mean, I really love it. So, and that's I don't know. That's what I really hold on to. I think resilience is definitely one. 100%. You've just got to move on from setbacks all the time, which, you know, many of you will be 100% used to, because, you know, it's a battle every day to just get recognized, get your name on the same list of loads of other directors and filmmakers, for sure. So you will have that, there's no question. I think being incredibly decisive and trust your instincts is also a really key trait. Is that 2 or 3? Is that 2 or 3? 2. And just have absolute deep passion in what you're doing. Just, you know, you've got to really love what you're doing. Like, I love television, I love program making, and I love talking about ideas. That has never left me. And the one thing that I find more I'm getting further away from, just because of my role, is that I'm not in enough creative conversations. I am with my team, but not enough with indies, and that's where the ideas come from in the end. So, and I don't have enough time to do that, which I just absolutely love. I love meeting program makers and indies, and so yeah, I would say that.
Fantastic. That was been really amazing and insightful. Ashok, you got a question quickly?
If you've got time for...
Yeah, we've got like 2 minutes, so go on quickly. 2 minutes, go on.
Okay. It's kind
Hey,
of...
Ashok, how are you?
I'm good, yeah, nice to see you.
I'm loving your hair. This is looking good. The last time I saw you, you're much shorter hair than that. That's a lockdown.
It's lockdown, isn't it? It's all...
It suits you, it looks great.
Thank you, I'm loving your shed too.
Yeah, it literally is a shed as well. We just painted it white. Anyway, sorry.
So just following on that last thing, one of the things that we had on one of our early sessions that Simone organised with our head sort of coach person, he drew a distinction. It's one of the biggest things that's landed with me between commitment and attachment. And it's I'm kind of really curious about this thing. I'm kind of interested to hear your perspective on it, because you're talking about passion, about having passion for it. And he's kind of saying, you need to be committed to it, but don't be attached. Just let it go, which is a kind of a real tension when you're trying to like say, I really believe in this idea and I really believe in this and this aspect for it, and having that passion. And I'm trying to ride that. I'm doing it now and I'm making a film at the moment, and I've got very much that tension going on at the moment. Just wondered if you had anything to speak about that kind of, you know, it's a difficult thing. You've got to think about your channel and your channel's needs and all this. It's that tension between commitment and attachment.
I think, yeah, it's a really good point. I think directors, and this is why is in commissioning teams we talk about this, and some commissioners are really good at respecting the program makers when they walk into an edit, right? And some commissioning editors are terrible. We've all had it where commissioning editor comes in, they get to them, and they're like, well, I just don't really like that. I think this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And you're like, as a program filmmaker, oh my God, I've spent 3 months, 6 months, 9 months making this film. Like, okay, I get it. It might not be perfect. There'll be a lot of changes still to make and things to do, but they've just done roughshod over your work. And that is a terrible commissioning editor, by the way. I think that's really poor. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be coming in and trying to pick out all the really good stuff before they reach, you know, the sort of notes, of which all films need notes, because they're really collaborative processes, really. But I think for directors, in a way, particularly for directors, I think in a way some of the best films are made out of this deep commitment and passion to make it, that I'm not sure you can detach yourself in that way. I think the trick is how can you play the role of being deeply passionate, really caring. This is the only thing you care about in your working life right now, nothing else, but allowing others to come into that process to help you along to make it better. So that might be your AP, your producer, your exec, your editor, the composer, the commissioning editor. And I think you've just always got to have that window open for them as well, because that will almost, in 99% of the cases that I've been involved in, it definitely makes the film better. It definitely makes the film better. Not always, but almost definitely makes it better. And that would be my biggest tip on that. I think for us, what we get a lot of, we see it a lot and we do it a lot, is an indie might come in, pitch you a load of ideas and say, I love this idea. And then they'll have like 8 ideas. I love this idea. I love this idea. I love this idea. You're like, you can't love all these. Like, which one do you want to make? Which one do you really want to make? And it's the same when commissioners come to me and they say, can I take this to Ian? And you're like, do you really love it? I really like it. But do you really, really love it? No, well, let's not take it. You've got to really love it. But you also can't love everything. You can only say that with meaning a handful of times. a bit like when you're in a relationship, a personal relationship, you can't just keep saying I love you to every single person you date, right? There's only going to be a handful you really fall in love with. I don't know, that's a terrible analogy.
But it makes sense. Oh my God, thank you so much. That was so insightful and so informative, and just really loads of food for thought and kind of lunchtime boosts that you need, particularly as we move into the kind of New Year's. Oh my God!
Not yet.
God, I know I'm wasting a year away, but I just wanted to say thank you. That was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and be with us and talk to us and just share and be so open and so vulnerable. That I really, really appreciate that. And guys, we look forward to seeing you. I think it's in a couple of weeks' time. I know Rio's been amazing and sent you all dates, so it helps you with your scheduling. So we are looking forward to seeing you all soon, and I'll update you about networking events and mention all the rest of the good stuff that we usually talk about. Just want to wish you all a fantastic bank holiday weekend. I hear the sun is out. Thank you all so much. Brilliant questions. I really appreciate it. And thanks, Simone and Rio, for organising. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
I'm around.
Thank
I'm
you.
around for 5 minutes if anyone wants to talk, but if not, I'll see you all very soon.
Have a lovely weekend, all.
You too. Thanks, Danny. Thanks, everybody.
Enjoy the sun.
Danny.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.